attacks at the queen, there are 3 main methods of taking her down. Method number 1 is to just shoot the bejesus out of her hull with any weapon that uses either heavy ammo, energy ammo, or a hull cracker. The more you shoot her body, the more her armor will begin to break off, and eventually she'll start looking like a walking metal skeleton. When that is the case, just keep shooting her exposed core. However, before her armor ever begins to break off, she will occasionally expose her core at the top of her body. You can feel free to shoot that whenever you see it. Method number 2, you can shoot her yellow joints, kind of like a bastion or a bombardier. These joints are hard to see, but if you're kind of beneath her looking up, you can see shades of yellow that look kind of like that. Shooting at those can help damage her. Method number 3, the big dick baller method, aka using the snap hook to get on top of the queen, shooting the metal plate at the top of her body until it breaks off, and then either damaging her core directly with a gun or putting a deadline on it and getting the hell out of there. Like the Rocketeer, this is a risky strategy, but because the queen is usually lower to the ground than a high-flying Rocketeer, it's actually a tad easier to get off of the queen after dropping a deadline. You can technically put 3 deadlines on the queen before jumping off, but you have to be very fast, otherwise you risk dying to your own deadline. I usually just do 1 or 2 if I'm feeling very ballsy. This won't kill the queen in one go, by the way. It takes around 8 or 9 deadlines total, but even if you have just 1, you're dealing pretty good damage to the queen no matter what. When fighting the queen or matriarch, by the way, I recommend bringing a backup shield in your backpack. The queen hits very hard, and she may completely break your shield to the point of non-repair, so having a backup is always a good idea. The matriarch. Killing the matriarch is very similar to killing the queen, it's just a little bit harder. Thankfully, all the same steps apply. You can wait for her to expose her core, but the armor at the front of her body will roll back instead of on top of her head. You can also shoot and break that armor at the front of her body to expose her core permanently. Doing that is pretty easy provided you have weapons that are good at breaking armor. Feel free.
Apparently I have a quest here. Cool, I was worried he got them.
Head home at the west elevator.
Of course.
Come on through. Everything's clean. Sterile, even.
Hey there. Today we're going to be talking about the best and
Why are we on Hurricane?
Yeah, why are we on
in
Hurricane
fucking
Spaceport? And he does this, he has like this hard on for this. And he just sits there with a smile on his face, his stupid ass fucking hat. And then he just screams, "Too good tower!" And then it's gonna take us 17 years to run over there because we're into the wind.
And then we're gonna die, and then he's gonna smile, because they're gonna arrest him, and we're gonna get fooled.
Yeah.
With his stupid little face and his stupid little hat on, with his mouth that looks like a chicken's ass.
My hat's fucking cool.
Chicken tower!
Why are we on Hurricane?
Yeah, why are we on
in
Hurricane
fucking
Spaceport?
space?
Welcome back to Is It War? World War I. War. Correct. World War II. War.
Yeah.
Correct. The Vietnam War.
War.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carl. That was a congressionally authorized counteroffensive. Don't worry, we'll
What?
get right back on track with the Korean
Oh, okay.
War. No, that was police action. No, they had tanks
Wait,
instead.
what?
Well, the police have tanks now, don't they, Carl? Okay, the First and Second Iraq War.
Wars?
War. They identify as military actions.
Oh.
It's a bit like pronouns, except we
Oh,
kill
okay.
people. All right, how about Libya?
Not a war.
I'm sorry, that was kinetic action, not a war.
Kinetic action.
Well, it was a
Special operation.
that's a war, I think. No,
Special
I'm
operation.
sorry, that was a law enforcement operation.
Oh, right.
It's a war. War
Yeah.
thing. No,
The bombing.
not war things. Preemptive retaliatory de-escalation action.
Of course.
That's not a thing. All right,
Yep.
judges. Okay, how about the war on terrorism? War. No, it was a coalition-led conditional operation. How about Afghanistan? Afghanistan was the war on terror. No, I'm sorry. That was a pre-authorized defense stabilization initiative.
Okay, can somebody tell me the rules here?
Yeah.
War on
Nope,
poverty,
they
Carl.
can't.
Poverty, that's not even
I'm
a thing.
sorry, I hate to do this to you. It was a trick question. We don't have
This is
poverty in the
Apollo.
United States.
The cultural archives in Stella Montes are pretty well guarded, so don't forget to hum a suspenseful tune while you search for those movies.
It's a war for the soul of the nation, whether or not I can wish my children Merry Christmas.
Okay, you know what? I quit. I don't want to do this anymore.
Today's magical phrase, Carl, you just became a United States Congressman. Congratulations, Representative Carl. Merry Christmas.
It's March.
Well, okay, happy Hanukkah.
This is so stupid. I love it.
Welcome back to Is It War? World War I. War. Correct. World War II.
The US is hammering Iran over and over again, unleashing its full range of bombers to cripple the country's missile-based strategy. Now, something that the US built in the 1950s is crushing all of the weapons Iran wanted to use in 2026. The B-52 strategy has been unleashed, and it's conducting some of the most devastating strikes that Iran has seen so far. Iran's missiles are no more, and its regime is facing up to a very
Go to the
simple
warehouse.
problem. This is just the beginning. We'll tell you why that is later in the video. First, here's what the US has been doing with its B-52s now that it's established air superiority, and some might even say supremacy, over Iran in the wake of the US and Israel destroying 80% of Iran's air defenses. The week leading up to March 9th has seen the US unleash constant strikes against Iran after its stealth bombers and fighter jets crippled the air defenses that Iran could have used to stop those strikes. The B-52 has been at the heart of these attacks, as US Central Command has made clear by releasing footage of these old bombers taking off en route to the country. What we have here is the sledgehammer after the surgical strikes. The US is able to use the oldest bomber that it has in its fleet to fly deep within Iranian territory now that the air defense is practically cancelled out. The B-52 pilots still have to be careful. Isolated air defense systems still remain, though America's bombers are getting a helping hand from several sources that we'll uncover in a moment. But what the US is now doing is using its B-52s to rain down immense amounts of firepower on Iran. And those bombers have one type of target that they're hitting with abandon: Iran's missile infrastructure. Max Afterburner explains more, stating that America's F-22 and F-35 stealth airframes have taken out whatever defenses that Iran had. EA-18G Growlers have also helped to create safe aerial corridors inside Iran, which allow the B-52s to fly directly where they need to go to strike targets. Those other airframes are creating a pathway for the B-52 Stratofortress to make its way into Iran and do some big things, as we're seeing, because the B-52 is hammering what's left of the missile network from Iran, hammering the production facilities as well. The Warzone, or TWZ, expands on what America's B-52s have been doing, noting that the first of these bombers that arrived in Iran attacked intelligently as Iran's air defenses were being crippled. That first wave of B-52s arrived on bases in the United States, 30-plus hour round trips in the process, to deliver AGM-158 JASSM missiles to targets throughout the country. This approach overcame the lack of stealth in the B-52 itself. The AGM-158 is a stealthy cruise missile that could pass by Iran's air defenses undetected. Firing those missiles from a distance, perhaps even from outside of Iran's airspace, via bases in Iraq or friendly Gulf countries, allowed the US to hit hard with its aging bombers without risking them to Iran's air defenses. The situation has changed with the latest strikes. As for Iran, it's feeling the pain of what the US is doing. Afterburner's mentions of America using B-52s to take out what's left of Iran's missile infrastructure demonstrate a clear tactic at play, working. According to I-24 News, Israel is claiming that about 70% of Iran's missile launches have been taken out of commission already, which has severely limited Iran's ability to strike back at the US or Israel. Iran has been able to salvage some of its damaged launchers, the outlet reports, but they're being moved into underground facilities that are being targeted with bunker-busting bombs. They're not producing even. The Wall Street Journal adds that Iran's missile threat has been so thoroughly degraded that what was meant to be a saturation strategy has devolved into Iran taking risky potshots at its enemies with its limited launches. Iran's ballistic missile launches are down 90% compared to the first day of the war by March 6th. And it seems that Iran has been forced to focus on persistent small strikes ahead of the volume that it targets, all due to B-52s and the other airframes that have been crippling its missile network. So the US strategy here is simple: keep hitting Iran's missiles hard, and persistence will degrade into non-existence. That's what we've seen with the most recent use of the B-52 in Iran. Afterburner explains, noting that just 2 hours before he published his March 9th analysis, footage was released of America's bombers scoring direct hits on Iranian ballistic missile launchers, along with the country's missile production facilities. Don't underestimate the importance of these secondary strikes. While the priority was always to take Iran's missile launchers out of the game, along with destroying as much of the country's ballistic missile stockpiles as possible, Iran also had ambitious plans for building up the stockpile in the coming years. According to the Israeli military, Iran has been ramping up its missile production in recent months, with the eventual goal being to build a stockpile of 8,000 ballistic missiles by 2027. That can't be allowed to happen. Having that many missiles would allow Iran to devastate almost any target in the Middle East with its preferred saturation strategy, assuming it is able to hide enough of its launchers away from the B-52 strike. So what we're seeing the US do here is switch its focus to the means of missile production, now that it's bombed Iran's missile launchers and existing stockpiles, they've been forced to go into hiding. The goal here is to make Iran's missile production stagnant. It means that every launch that Iran's regime attempts from now on eats into a stockpile that isn't getting replenished, with the B-52s destroying the facilities that make Iran's ballistic missile. It's a brilliant move by the US, and now the B-52s are getting a helping hand to ensure that they hit Iran precisely, as well as heavily. We mentioned that helping hand earlier, and Afterburner explains where it's coming from. Likely these strikes, some of them coming from the B-52 with a Predator drone doing ISR, intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, Afterburner says. In other words, the US has evolved its bomber strategy by using drones to scout out the area. The Predators are carrying out battle damage assessments to see what's been hit, what remains to be hit, and what Iran has that could pose a threat to the B-52s as they move in for the next kill. What this allows the B-52 pilots to do is not only chart the safe aerial corridors that have already been created during the initial phase of the war, but also find safe offshoot paths toward targets that have yet to be hit. It's an extremely efficient way to use drones that, unless they are attacking, aren't going to present enough of a threat to the stragglers of Iran's air defense network to become targets themselves. And what we may be seeing here is the US taking a few lessons from the Ukraine war, particularly in terms of using drones to conduct reconnaissance and intelligence gathering, and applying those lessons to multiply the force being delivered by an aerial arsenal that is far more advanced and powerful than the one at Ukraine's disposal. Predators are well suited to this particular job too, as they've been designed with endurance and multi-mission functionality in mind. The drone has a range of 770 miles, meaning it can scout a large area ahead of a B-52 bombing range. Able to climb to an altitude of 25,000 feet, the Predator can also stay out of the range of many of Iran's air defense systems. The unit cost is a little high at $20 million, though a single Predator unit actually includes 4 of the drones, along with sensors, a ground control station, and a satellite. In this drone, the US has, and is deploying, an intelligence-gathering machine that also just happens to be capable of attacking a target with its 450-pound payload, if the time calls for it. And on top of information coming in from drones, the B-52 pilots are receiving more data from other sources. I mean, they can see exactly where these targets are, Afterburner says of the B-52s, and they're pumping information from other fighters, MQ-9s, RQ-4s, pumping information to the B-52 in real time to show it where these targets are and what needs to be struck next. What this means is that America's B-52s can execute their strikes in waves. They hit hard, restock, and come back, and then hit hard again at a whole new raft of targets. And with a combat range that is in excess of 8,800 miles, the B-52 can essentially loiter in the skies as its pilot waits for the next piece of information. The next target comes in, is pressed, and a precision bomb gets sent flying in the direction of whatever needs to be hit. It's an extremely effective approach, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But before we get to that, this is The Military Show. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to hit the button so you never miss the latest Iran war news. According to Afterburner, this approach, which had followed on from the initial wave of B-52 strikes, has led to America's aging bomber striking 200 targets in the 72 hours leading up to March 9th. And each of these strikes takes another slice out of Iran's missile power. When the B-52 hits, Iran loses a launcher, or it loses a missile stockpile, or one of the tunnels that it uses to transport missiles around its underground bases. And with each of these losses, Iran also loses the ability to conduct attacks against Israel, US bases, or the Gulf neighbors who are directly or indirectly supporting the American war effort. What the US is doing here is turning Iran into a country that has a missile-focused military doctrine, but no missiles to follow it through. It's doing all of this with a bomber that is well over 60 years old. Don't let the age fool you. The B-52 is far from a creaking airframe that the US is deploying because it has nothing better in its arsenal. This is the same bomber that the US Air Force points out delivered about 40% of all weapons that coalition forces dropped during Operation Desert Storm. And what's happening in Iran right now is proof that the B-52 is still the deliverer of immense amounts of firepower that it once must be. Sure, it's not a stealth bomber, B-2 that the US used in its initial strikes, but the B-52 can still reach speeds of Mach 0.84 or around 650 miles per hour, and it carries around 70,000 pounds of weapons, which can include bombs, missiles, and even mines. And it's this payload capacity that is the entire point. Unlike a fighter jet, which can unload a handful of missiles and perhaps a few bombs, B-52 can rattle off dozens of precision bombs in a single attack, often taking out multiple targets per sortie before it needs to be reloaded with new bombs. As the Iran war goes on, we're also seeing the role that the B-52 plays start to evolve. I mentioned earlier, the first B-52s the US used fired standoff weapons, likely from the territory of friendly countries. But as more of Iran's air defense network has collapsed, a change in approach has started. Afterburner explains more, stating, these B-52s can roll in, release their cruise missiles from standoff distance, and then just continue flying in. With air superiority established in Iran, the B-52s can follow up their initial wave of attacks with strikes from inside Iran itself. It's likely the bombers are firing joint attack munitions, or JDAMs, loaded with 2,000-pound bombs for this purpose. And with a 70,000-pound payload, the B-52 can bring 35 of these heavy-hitting bombs to a strike, which can devastate the target. That's what we're seeing throughout Iran. And thanks to another recent development, we're likely going to be seeing a lot more of it in the coming days. Stick with us and we'll explain why. Before we get into that, Afterburner adds that what we're seeing now in Iran is the US executing on its own air superiority doctrine so well that it's shattered whatever strategy that Iran may have had in place before the first bombs dropped in late February. America's B-52s are carrying out wave after wave of strikes, after Burner points out, and then neutralizing potential threats before they ever have the chance to become actual threats to the US, Israel, or the many Gulf nations that Iran is currently. The tactics are textbook here, Burner explains, adding, suppress air defenses, first with stealth, create the silent corridors, and then bring in the heavies for that sustained pressure. The B-52 is among the heaviest of their tanks. Iran is feeling all 70,000 pounds of payload weight every single day. Now, we mentioned that this development is going to lead to a lot more of the B-52s wreaking havoc in Iran in the coming days. That doesn't mean the UK is now allowing the US to use its air bases. Specifically, RAF Fairford is in play, and it will likely be joined by the Diego Garcia base in the Indian Ocean. According to TWZ, 3 of America's B-52s have already arrived at the former base as of March 9th, having made the journey from Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota. And now that those bombers are there, Iran is set to discover what a truly sustained campaign is really all about. Why? Well, the simple answer is that the UK allowing the US to use its air bases significantly cuts down on travel time for America's B-52s. Before the UK allowed the US in, America's B-52s had to travel from the US to Iran. Sure, they could be stationed at bases nearby once they arrived, but that came with the risk of being targeted by Iranian missile strikes. But even without taking that into consideration, the B-52s had to fly over the Atlantic Ocean, then over Europe and parts of Asia to reach their targets. Multiple aerial refueling stops were needed to get the bombers to Iran and back. And even on the most basic level, longer flights create more opportunities for things to go wrong. With RAF Fairford in play, the flight time for a B-52 has been cut down drastically. Defense industry explains more. It says the distance between Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, which is where America's first fleet of B-52s flew from, and Iran is about 11,000 kilometers, or around 6,835 miles. It's getting pretty close to the B-52's range of 8,800 miles, and that's before you take the return journey. However, the distance between RAF Fairford is just 4,500 kilometers, or 2,796 miles. That's far less than half the distance, and it creates the opportunity for American bombers to fly into Iran, unleash their payloads, and then return to a base that is well out of range of Iranian retaliation, but still comfortably within the range of the B-52. Even with a round trip, the B-52 still has over 3,000 miles left of flying in the tank when deploying from RAF Fairford. The US is also very familiar with this particular base. As the BBC reports, the US Air Force's 501st Combat Support Wing has worked on the base for a long time, and it provides support for America's bomber fleet. B-1s, B-2s, and B-52s have all been stationed at the base before. No infrastructure needs to be built because it's already in place. The US has teams that can maintain its bombers and keep them flying. And the odds are that we're also going to start to see American cargo planes heading into RAF Fairford with ammunition to keep the B-52s and other bombers loaded. And adding to all of this is the simple fact about the American bombers traveling a much shorter distance to Iran that we haven't covered yet. The shorter the distance, the more frequently attacks can become. For Iran, there is no end in sight to the havoc the B-52 is wreaking on its missile infrastructure. If anything, the UK bases coming into play mean that the already devastating strikes we've seen so far are going to escalate in intensity and frequency. Trump has also made it very clear that the US is going to keep hitting Iran until the job is done, with that job seemingly being the complete collapse of the country's regime. When asked on March 9th when he thought the war would end, Trump said that the US had already eliminated 2 levels of Iran's leadership, adding, "Most people have never even heard about the leaders that they're talking about. We're achieving major strides toward completing our military objective." Major strides towards completion doesn't mean the war is done yet. Iran's decision to appoint Ali Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, as its new supreme leader isn't helping things for Iran. As Al Jazeera reports, Trump has already slammed that appointment and rather unsubtly suggested that it won't last. In other words, Iran replacing one Khamenei with another isn't going to cut it. "I'm not going through this to end up with another Khamenei. I want to be involved in the selection," Trump said. Iran seems to think differently, and it's hard to see how it can negotiate for any sort of ceasefire as long as it's making leadership appointments that directly contradict what Trump wants for Iran. As long as those types of appointments are happening, the B-52s will keep flying. With every sortie will come more heavy shots against the asymmetric warfare strategy that Iran intended to employ. More missile bases and launch sites will blow up. The same goes for storage facilities and missile building infrastructure. What this means for the new Khamenei is that he has essentially been appointed as the supreme leader of a country that has watched itself collapse in at least from a military standpoint. And as Mojtaba Khamenei tries to find whatever he believes is going to come next, he has to deal with the America's B-52 are closer than ever now. And that means that With all the other bombers closer than ever that Iran's new regime has to worry about. Carriers are still in and around the Persian Gulf region, and they're stocked with fighter jets that are causing just as much damage in Iran as America's bombers. Aircraft carriers are becoming obsolete. We have something to say about that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay ahead of the trend on American relations.
Thanks. I appreciate you helping me.
And the ability to fly a sword like Captain America. Yeah, that menace is alive. Find out if you want to. Rumination's pretty much hibernation for reptiles. Basically a built-in power save mode for animals that already don't use much. What it means, this is a type of predator that can survive a fate with Elsa. Those gators and the like can survive a winter in a frozen pond by turning their metabolism all the way down. Where they'll just stick their snouts above water and leave the rest under the ice where it's actually warmer until fate decides to defrost them. Mind you, rumination's not unique. Gators will move around on days when it's warm. What it also means this unmannered iceberg can probably send you walking past it, thanks to another superpower we'll get into later. Because you're going to learn that not only is the main gecko the most disrespectful addition to the food web, it is humanity's greatest predator. Whatever Oppenheimer felt when Hiroshima got hurt from massacre.
An Ark orbiter is en route. The safe window is closing. 10 minutes to get out of there. I repeat, 10 minutes.
Oh, damn it. My fire alarm was going off. You can't help a guy out? I literally had a fire alarm going off. You can't help a guy out? Please? No? Man, that fucking sucks.
There's another example where a massive saltwater crocodile scared a pig into running into a lagoon, where it was immediately jumped by two smaller crocs waiting. Now the implication there is somehow the giant salty knew exactly what direction to force the pig.
Bro, I straight up had a fire alarm going off.
Chances are they're also studying you, and their thesis statement is your headstone engraving. Vlad has put in over 3,000 hours of watching crocs. He's witnessed things like a stronger, heavier croc driving fish ashore, and smaller, more agile teammates hawking important fish. Now you might ask, how do the crocs share their victims? And honestly, that might be more unsettling than how they murk them. Chris Campbell was a contractor for the Okefenokee Wildlife Reserve, which meant over a decade of watching what a neighbor gator is capable of. One day he showed up to work with 60-something gators posted up by the roadblocks. What he described were two groups of gators, one in a semicircle formation driving fish in the shallows and using boats to corner them, and the other group in the background resting, or more like waiting. Because whenever a gator from the hunting party caught a fish, he'd immediately retire to the water. One of the waiting crocs would sub in and take his place. This went on for hours, until it got hot enough for them to clock out and go their ways. But when Campbell went back the next morning, like clockwork, the morning crush was still there. Same time, same place, same agenda. That's a level of teamwork and foresight most people aren't willing to accept from a prehistoric snaptrap. But your ignorance ain't bliss. In fact, it's what sustains them. In many spots in Africa and Australia, people are warned never to get water in the same place more than once, and definitely not past twice. It's because crocodiles will memorize patterns and clock your daily routine. And getting too predictable around a professional camper means the croc will take note, just to ambush you the next chance they get. And they'll use very little energy to do it. It's also why studying them is like edging death. Choose the same spots repeatedly, and at best, the croc notices and avoids you with no regard for your research. And at worst, in your snappy studies your habits enough to put a halo around your head. That's a real PhD, which makes a crocodile a gift wrapped FDA literature. The most dangerous kind of crocodile is actually the best kind. If you watch this video,
yes, Mr. Teal, it just arrived this morning, but I still don't know about the name. Shea Garbage has always been a trash anime restaurant, and no, I understand that it tested better with focus groups. Slop has a very different implication that I don't think you're really... Oh, shit, I gotta go. I'll see you at the barbecue, though. BYOB, got it.
Let's go to the warehouse.
Yes, I understand the B doesn't stand for beer. I've seen you eat a baby before, dude. You don't have to explain the joke every time. Ugh. Investors, am I right? But enough about business. You're here for trash. And let me tell you, buddy, this winter's pile might just be the largest and juiciest you've ever seen. Darn near enough of the stuff to swim in. So let's stop waiting around and thinking about that super normal conversation I was just having and dive right in, shall we? One of the most frequent requests we get at Chez Garbage is to put more good shonen battle stuff on the menu, which can be tricky since the FDA doesn't really let us serve good stuff, but I'm happy to report that for today's trash appetizer, we have Jujutsu Kaisen at home. Dead Account isn't just any half-baked spooky shonen trend chaser, though. It's a terminally online spooky shonen trend chaser. And when I say terminally online, I mean the internet is haunted. See, social media accounts can act as earthly attachments, anchoring and gradually corrupting their users' souls until they turn into vicious, uncaring monsters. But enough about reality. In this show's world, when someone dies, their Twitter account becomes an evil ghost that runs on batteries, and a bunch of teenagers have to hunt them down in the local department store or whatever and kill them again before they hurt someone. Dead Account actually has a better excuse than most shonen for why it has to be teenagers, too. Older spirit mediums have to run their psychic powers through an analog to digital converter at 1/10 efficiency just to damage these digitized demons, whereas the younger generation is inherently attuned to cyberkinesis, which manifests in various ways depending on what kind of mental illness they manifest online. A cyberstalker could gain the power to cling to things, for instance, while a gamer shut-in might use puppet magic, and someone who obsessively retouches all their photos could get healing powers that work through Photoshop. It's a world where holier-than-thou keyboard warriors wield almighty banhammers while
What's up, bro?
trolls wage their flame wars with literal flames. And those aren't just hypothetical examples. The professional YouTube troll is the
Just
show's
to let you know,
Yuji, while the keyboard warrior Reddit mod guy I mentioned is its Megumi equivalent. And
I'm just here to do a quest.
be more brutal slander than the actual JJK fandom ever threw at the real Megumi. To be clear, as characters go, they're nowhere near JJK's level, and neither are the fights they get into, but by bog standard shonen standards, it's fun and fresh enough. Certainly several cuts above the likes of, say, Togen Anki, so I'm happy to give it 3 baskets of garlic bread. Now, the built-in VPN and ad blocking features of today's sponsor, Opera GX, won't do much about ghosts, but they will protect you from all sorts of other online annoyances standing between you and your anime. Just by using my link to download the browser, you'll be able to instantly access region-locked streaming content from Europe, Asia, and America completely free, with no worries about plugin compatibility because the VPN and the ad blocker are built right into the browser. And with a VPN Pro subscription, you'll gain access to over 3,000 private servers in over 30 different countries with secure VPN encryption and data-saving options on up to 6 devices at once. Thanks to Opera GX's pop-out video feature, you don't even have to stop watching the anime that you're going through a VPN to watch, or your favorite YouTube anime talker about her, as the case may be, while you're doom scrolling. And if you got a small screen where you can't see everything in the doom scroll over the video, you can just turn the video frame transparent. They think about these things. Plus, you can doom scroll in style with GX mods, which let you fully customize every aspect of your browsing experience, from the color palette, to the animated wallpaper, to the splash screen, to the sounds. Want Satoru Gojo meeting you in every tab? You can do that. Want to turn the entire internet into the Wired from Lane? You can do that too. Plus, mix and match mods, or even create your own from scratch. The possibilities are endless. Best of all, Opera GX is fully compatible with every Chrome extension you're already using, and their quick import feature makes upgrading your browser a snap. 4 clicks are all you need to level up your internet experience, plus, you know, the one that you do in the doobly-doo to actually download, and then probably at least a couple more to get it installed and opened it, but nonetheless, very few clicks for a very good browser. Huge thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring this video. I mean, this menu at my restaurant. One of the most common uses for web browsers like that one these days is reading web novels, which, as any trash connoisseur can tell you, were popularized in Japan many years ago on the groundbreaking website Shosetsuka ni Naro. Today, they serve as the basis for some of the most delectably pungent anime adaptations in the entire medium. And now, thanks to the generosity of our venture capital partners, you can finally enjoy them all in one place. Yes, in the spirit of not understanding the themes and messages of Tolkien, I'm proud to introduce the official Palantir Naro Slop Trough. Don't mind the cameras, they're just there to collect data on your ghostly habits. Now, as you can see, this trough is divided into several buckets because Naro Slop comes...
Ew. Let's just get out of here. I've been died 3 times trying to complete this quest to snipers, none.
Yes! Comes in several different yet incredibly similar varieties to fulfill our various nerd needs. From left to right, we have Lonely Slop, Validation Slop, and most importantly, Number Slop. Lonely Slop, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. That's where you'll find your romance, anything that fills the void for an afternoon. Validation Slop, meanwhile, is for folks who do see other people on a fairly regular basis, but don't particularly care for it. You know, work/school sucks, everyone there sucks, but I personally don't suck, so give me a world where everyone pats my ass for not sucking, and or all the people who do suck finally get what they deserve. And then, of course, Number Slop is stuff where numbers go up and your brain goes burr. Sometimes the numbers are letters, sometimes there's letters and numbers, but the important thing is it's a Skinner box you can watch. Be they isekai, villainessekai, one of those fucking things, or anything in between, all Naro Slop fits neatly into one of these 3 buckets with maybe a little bit of splashover. Okay, there's a lot of splashover. Obviously, you can find plenty of Validation Slop with stat screens and harems for days, or Lonely Slop where some assholes get what's coming to them in between the guy finally kissing the girl or whatever's going on there. But with a keenly honed taste for trash, our chefs are able to identify the dominant flavor in each of these anime and sort them accordingly. For example, there was a cute girl in the hero's party, so I tried confessing to her has an adventurer's guild, a loose skill system, semi-objective power rankings, a world generally saturated in number sloppiness. Plus, its isekai protag has a whole bunch of inept co-workers at the Demon King factory who treat him like shit and fail to recognize his overpowered greatness. However, those elements are self-evidently pretty half-baked, and from subtle clues in the title, we can deduce that the show's main focus is, in fact, on romantic comedy, which it also doesn't do very well, but that much is at least like 5/8 asked. The idea of a Demon King's edgelord lieutenant switching sides because he fell for the hero's healer is pretty entertaining. The execution, not so much. Kind of feels like they had all the artists working on backgrounds for most of the production time, and then a month before airing they were like, wait, no one's animated any characters yet? And the writing isn't much better than that, but still, it is a pretty neat idea. I'll give them that. And that idea clearly belongs in the lonely slot bucket. Sometimes it's not so cut and dry, though. Roll Over and Die has stats for days. Protag Chan's entire life is ruined by not enough stats, and she turns it around by figuring out how to get way more stats. The stat screens themselves have like Persona-level graphic design going on, and sometimes the show even does psychological horror with the stats. Most straight-up number slop doesn't put anywhere near that much effort into its numbers. Yet, at the same time, most of those fucking things don't make the guy who betrays their Kirito, or I guess, Kiritet, even half this detestable. This guy doesn't just kick her out of the heroine party for not having enough stats and also to make room so he can bang the heroine. He straight up sells her into slavery, and the slave merchant tries to murder her with zombies because her stats aren't even good enough for that. And in return, when she discovers that she can reverse the effects of cursed gear to get hella stats, she murders the shit out of that guy. And it's pretty clear that the other guy is gonna get the shit murdered out of him at some point in the future.
If this was a staring contest, you'd win.
Not just validation slop, but straight up vindication slop. A story about a good girl and her girlfriend giving lots of bad men exactly what they deserve, which certainly many bad men do get over the course of the anime and just half of the episodes that are out right now, and it's satisfying every time. As is every time she finds a new piece of cursed gear and the numbers go up. My brain goes burr a lot watching this show, but ultimately, all of that is just meticulously painted eldritch dark fantasy icing on a deceptively fluffy Yuri cake. She may get a lot of numbers and stab a lot of bastards, but at the end of the day, what really brings meaning to Flum's life is her blossoming relationship with fellow escaped slave Milkit, her growing friendship with that nun in training who's caught the eye of a certain succubus, and the heroine's lingering feelings for her that are doing as much to tear their old party apart as not having the errand girl around anymore, which is probably for the best, all things considered, because it's pretty clear their whole war on the Demon Lord is really a genocidal power grab by the spiral from Uzumaki worshiping church that sent them to do the quest in the first place and is manufacturing abominations underground. And that, honestly, is some of the best lore I've seen in fantasy anime of any stripe, but even incredibly juicy and original lore tidbits like that remain secondary to the show's main purpose as lonely slop for lesbians and lesbian appreciators. So, turns out that even one of those fucking things can be something other than validation slop. Most of them aren't, though. Jack of all trades, party of none is the rare one of those fucking things that makes you think, wow, what a great, succinct title, and it's pretty much all downhill from there. In fact, that might be the last thing you ever think about it, because even by the standards of this subgenre, it is such a generic non-object that it resists being perceived or even remembered. Even now, mere minutes after watching it to refresh myself for this roast, I find my brain slipping off its surface, scrambling for purchase on a single detail that doesn't also describe that other anime about a buff-focused mage who leaves the top-level party that didn't appreciate him enough to mentor a red-headed girl half his age who very transparently wants to bang him, and so do her friends. I can tell you that it doesn't have magic live streaming or carbon copies of Rudius Greyrat's entire harem or any of the other things that mildly set that other thing apart, but nothing that it actually does differently comes to mind. I guess it's pretty funny that the hero's party this particular Kirito is banished from wasn't actually given that title by anyone. They just kind of decided to call themselves the heroes and everyone else rolled with it. But the show doesn't really understand how funny that is. The world building's just super lazy generic video game shit, and I don't think the author thought about it at all. He didn't even put much effort into the video game shit. The entire reason Kirito gets banished in the first place is because his dual-classed swordsman enchanter build isn't min-maxed enough for the current dungeon meta, but his party is already the top record holder for the dungeon, so clearly their current comp is outperforming the meta. As a number slop enthusiast, I'm frankly offended they thought they could sneak that by. Into the bucket you go. Thankfully, we've also got slop like Hell Mode. The hardcore gamer dominates in another world with garbage balancing to wash the taste out of my mouth. I mean, low-key, that one's got a lot of lonely sloppiness going for it, too. Protag does end up getting isekai'd into the body of a medieval surf child because he begged the universe to give him a real challenge for once in his gaming life, and with nerfed XP gain and a crazy high learning curve on his starter class, it certainly is a challenge just climbing the level ladder, never mind the social one, but he gets something else in the bargain. A family that loves him, plus an endearingly psychotic childhood friend. And pretty quickly, his goal changes from get numbers or die trying to get enough numbers to elevate my family out of poverty and try not to die trying because that would make them really sad. It's clearly using the raw Skinner box appeal of number slop to condition its gamer audience in a pro-social direction. However, the Skinner box is still the primary appeal in that scenario, and in fact, the whole social advancement narrative is really more numbers. See, there's a fixed amount of gold you have to pay to the government before you can go up in social class, which is already quite challenging to achieve with the absurdly high taxes that serfs have to pay. And by trying to pay for his entire family at once, Protag is also playing that game on Hell Mode, which is fantastic. And I haven't even touched on the actual core game system of the anime, which allows him to circumvent the inherently low numbers of his summoner class by summoning little critters that each give him bonus numbers and fusing those critters together to get even better bonuses, which he's kind of got to do because he can only store a very limited number of critters in his big book of numbers, and the number he can summon at once is further limited by his MP number. However, there's a summon that gives him more MP, and yeah, brr. Speaking of critters, one number that really needs to go up more is the pitifully low quantity of monster isekai anime. The concept of being reborn as something entirely inhuman and having to adapt to a totally new mode of existence is bursting with narrative potential and has spawned plenty of books as a result. Yet even if you include the sword one and the vending machine one, but not any of the skeleton ones, because let's be real, those are just regular dudes minus the skin, only 6 of them have ever been made into anime, and only 5 of those are remotely watchable. 4 if you're a Shane Dawson hater. 3 once you've read enough Chrysalis to fully appreciate the innate inferiority of 8-legged filth. But now, thanks to reincarnated as a dragon hatchling, we finally got 7 of them, and that's not the only number you're gonna see go up here. We're talking HP, MP, EXP, skill levels, monster evolution ranks, all that good math. Admittedly, Protag is also kind of very lonely, but even when he picks a super scary evolution against his better judgment, just for the slim chance to get a little less lonely, all he actually gets from it is more numbers. At first. Eventually, it will give him access to a human disguise form, which does have me a little worried, if I'm being honest, because you know, once you let your Kiritomon digivolve back into a human, it's only a matter of time before he's doing boring human numbers like budgets and taxes. Still, so far, the numbers here are more than acceptable. Not quite Hell Mode level numbers, but this here bucket ain't about how good, it's about how much. That doesn't mean we're just gonna throw any old slop in there just because it cuts away to the occasional Excel spreadsheet, though. If the numbers don't mean anything and they're not properly distributed with Skinnerian randomization, my brain ain't gonna go burr. And that is precisely the problem with noble reincarnation, born blessed so I'll obtain ultimate power. Well, one of many problems. The whole show's kind of problems, and some of those problems are the best thing about it.
どうせ偽物のおもちゃだろ。
Only 6 of them have ever numbers, and the number he can summon at once is further fantastic. And I haven't even touched on the actual core game system of the anime, which allows him to circumvent the inherently low numbers of his summoner class by summoning little critters that each give him bonus numbers and fusing those critters together to get even better bonuses, which he's kind of got to do because he can only store a very limited number of critters in his big book of numbers, and the number he can summon at once is further limited by his MP number. However, there's a summon that gives him more MP, and yeah, brr. Speaking of critters, one number that really needs to go up more is the pitifully low quantity of monster isekai anime. The concept of being reborn as something entirely inhuman and having to adapt to a totally new mode of existence is bursting with narrative potential and has spawned plenty of books as a result. Yet even if you include the sword one and the vending machine one, but not any of the skeleton ones, because let's be real, those are just regular dudes minus the skin, only 6 of them have ever been made into anime, and only 5 of those are remotely watchable. 4 if you're a Shane Dawson hater. 3 once you've read enough Chrysalis to fully appreciate the innate inferiority of 8-legged filth. But now, thanks to Reincarnated as a Dragon Hatchling, we finally got 7 of them, and that's not the only number you're gonna see go up here. We're talking HP, MP, EXP, skill levels, monster evolution ranks, all that good math. Admittedly, Protag is also kind of very lonely, but even when he picks a super scary evolution against his better judgment, just for the slim chance to get a little less lonely, all he actually gets from it is more numbers. At first. Eventually, it will give him access to a human disguise form, which does have me a little worried, if I'm being honest, because, you know, once you let your Kiritomon digivolve back into a human, it's only a matter of time before he's doing boring human numbers like budgets and taxes. Still, so far, the numbers here are more than acceptable. Not quite hell mode level numbers, but this here bucket ain't about how good. It's about how much. That doesn't mean we're just gonna throw any old slop in there just because it cuts away to the occasional Excel spreadsheet, though. If the numbers don't mean anything and they're not properly distributed with Skinnerian randomization, my brain ain't gonna go burr. And that is precisely the problem with noble reincarnation, born blessed so I'll obtain ultimate power. Well, one of many problems. The whole show's kind of problems, and some of those problems are the best thing about it.
どうせ偽物のおもちゃだろ。
待て。忠実なのはいいがやりすぎだ。
お見事です。13神の殿下。
あの男はいかがなさいますか。
But the math problems? Not so much. This show clearly wants to be number slop. I mean, it's got Protag looking at a stat screen literally 5 seconds after he's born. But it's just too darn loosey-goosey with the actual numbers. letters. I can accept getting an infinite level cap plus 1 S-ranked magic skill right from the jump. I mean, we got a 6-year-old with heterochromia swinging a sword as tall as he is on the poster. I can't say it didn't warn me. But you gotta make him work for it a little. In the second episode, this kid just straight up trips over 2 different legendary magic artifacts on an afternoon shopping trip with his brother. At least put him in a fucking dungeon or something. Come on! Of course, being a prince and all, the story is ostensibly more about statecraft than swordcraft, but spoilers, it also sucks ass at that. Pretty much every political problem the prince faces gets solved by throwing a bunch of money at it, and as soon as he whips out the wallet, there's almost always some asshole falling to the floor in front of him, proclaiming to the heavens what a genius he is for spending his dad's money so good. Unless you're a fucking Nepo baby, that doesn't even work as validation slop. It's just plain slop, and I'm dumping it on the floor where it belongs. Even if you are
Hey, what's up, man?
baby, there's better sloptions this
Hey, let me
season. Like a gentle
go
noble
run and do this
vacation
Keith and solo real quick.
A
and,
rare double
after this,
isekai about a nobleman
back
who
on.
finds
Oh,
himself
okay.
transported from one
I'll do my keys without you then too. Blah.
I gotta get on the loot, bro.
Bro, I got like 7 keys.
Some of the locals, which is really what this show's all about at the end
got
of the
1
day.
blue key
Pure,
and 2 green keys.
simple
I'm using the blue key right now.
romance. The chill dandy
But
Liesel
I don't want to do it in duos
new
unless I get
dungeon
fucking
delving buddy
attacked
will
by
offer
everyone.
anything that's glory hands actually let other
We'll run it solo
adventurers
real
take
quick
the
where my
fame
karma's a
from
little
them
better,
and just
but
take
being
some of the
nice.
money off the top. And there's not much need
And
for
then I'll
stat crunching when you
hop
can
on, so
already
if you wanna
one-shot
run a
most
raid real quick,
monsters
I'll
with your
be
magic
back.
floating
Alright,
around.
alright.
So this one's all about the
Alrighty,
vibes and
I'll
the
be right
character
back.
chemistry, which are thankfully really good. A rare example of platonic lonely slop. Unless you don't want it to be, of course. Fanfics are always an option, and certainly the show seems open to them.
俺はてめえが金払ったそいつと同じ B ランクなんだぞ。あなた程度の存在と私のものを同列に並べられるのは。
But if that's Bush, not to mention all the Karo Shisekai. And even if the goal isn't validation, surely with an accountant protagonist, we must be in for hella numbers here. Perhaps Paradox Interactive brain go burr? It definitely went a little burr in episode 1, but then at the end of the episode, Accountant-san collapses from too much magic energy drinks, and in the next episode, the handsome knight captain, who's kind of been eyeing him somewhat sinisterly, if you're not picking up on the vibes, helpfully demonstrates the proper procedures for magic detox.
口を開けろ。
Okay, let's not jump to conclusions here. There might be a perfectly reasonable lore explanation for that.
処置とは魔法を施した者の魔力を対象者に馴染ませることだが。
Sure. Skin-to-skin contact makes perfect sense. And yeah, obviously that other spell's only gonna work with him sitting on your lap. How else are you supposed to direct the mana flow around his body? So, yeah, we got full-on BL Lonely Slop this season, and it is glorious. Most of the time. Sometimes they really cheap out on animating the juicy bits compared to, say, the manga, but you know what they say. Don't look a gift yaoi in the hands. Still, I do feel at least some of the complaints in that department are warranted, considering how many resources Studio Dean decided to throw at the villainess is adored by the prince of the neighbor kingdom. Instead, even though that is probably the laziest, most generic villainess story ever ever told, at least in anime. I mean, it doesn't even pretend like Protag-chan has to do anything to fix her reputation and avert the bad ending, despite only getting her memories back like a couple weeks before her fiancé betrays her. Literally everyone in the entire school and seemingly kingdom at large already thinks she's great, and that Prince Heart Knight's Lapis Lazuli Lackmouth, yes, that's it.
What's up, I'm Joel Shoot. In this video guide, I'll be showing you the Salamanca's Archives key, where to use it, where to get it. First, without further ado, let's head across to Salamanca's, where we'll be heading on the second floor. You can use E to change the floors here, where we've got the Cultural Archives. It's over here towards the top right over here. There are, of course, many ways to get to the second floor here. If you spawn by the seed vault, you can hop up somewhere here onto the next floor. Super easy to do. Otherwise, anywhere else, there's elevators here near the loading bay, and of course little bits that connect both of these floors throughout the
There are plenty of
map.
dangers
It's a
hiding
little
in the
bit difficult
dark,
to get used
and
to
Ark
if you
is being
haven't been to
extra
Stellantis
vigilant.
before, but at least when you find your way up onto this floor here, you're in the right place. Make your way to the Cultural Archives. Now, recently they did add a night mode to Stellamontes, and I highly recommend coming at night, as it's going to greatly increase your chances for good loot. But just to keep things nice and clear for the video, I'll be going during the day. The best place to spawn is the seed vaults, where you can just turn around here, and there's some pipes that lead you up, again right here. As this game has just started, there shouldn't be anyone else at least too close by, so we can make our way up here pretty safely. It is labeled as the storage room. Heading straight there, doesn't even seem like the shredders have spawned in. That's pretty good. Heading all the way to the end here, you can see there's a locked door. All we need to do is just access, and we go open the door and close it behind us. That is
Let's head home at the seed vault air shaft.
Well, damn it, bro.
Air filters are clogged in Block 7. Breathe shallow if you're over there.
Someone broke into the East Wing storage rooms. Not sure what's left. Check for yourself.
Router's late again. Pick up what you can when it shows up. The East Ground recycling station's full again. It will be emptied at some point. Power outages are likely today. Guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Orientation briefing begins every hour. Miss it twice. Get stuck with sanitation chores.
Notice the lost boot found near the central pillar. If it smells like regret, it's yours.
What's up, I'm Troubleshoot. In this quick guide, I'll be showing you the Stellamontes Archives key, where to use it.
The hottest thing a guy can do is make a little noise. Okay, let out a little.
Remember, power is out at 2200 hours.
Hey, hello?
What's going on?
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing alright. How you doing?
I'm doing actually really good. I was just watching some of the Burnt Peanut. You know who he is?
Not familiar.
Let's go, Burnt Peanut. Best VTuber to date.
I love the Burnt Peanut. Goop.
I hope you made
Who he is?
Not familiar.
Let's go, Burnt Peanut. Best VTuber to date.
I love the burnt peanut. Goop.
I hope you make peace with your godmother.
How's it going?
To see him. Boss.
Oh. Ayo. Oh, wait.
When he
Hello?
did that.
If we need more
Yeah.
damage, I can swap
pretty
to.
fucking
Yeah, I
terrible.
usually would have went Punisher. But
Did you do it on a night raid?
Swap to.
I did it on Cold Snap.
Oh, well. I also tried to do a key, but it was a Stellamontis key, and I died.
Oh, yep.
I still have
That's expensive.
2 more pink Stellamontis keys.
What was it, the archives?
Yeah.
He's pretty fucking terrible anyway for pink.
Oh no, I was pretty gooped.
Well, every time I've done it, it's been terrible. I got a Venator fucking blueprint, and I fucking hate that gun, so it was pretty useless. Waste my time. And the first raid I loaded into, I was
Why do you hate it?
late, so I just don't like the gun. Every time I use it, I just feel like I'm shooting them way too many times for them to die. But I did all that, and unfortunately, I can't even play it because I have to go to work now.
Well, have fun.
Well, it's fucking 9:32. It's a shame.
Yep. I'll catch you next time then, I guess.
I suppose I'll probably be on tomorrow.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully, I don't have work. I
Hey,
work on
hello.
call, so.
What's going on?
Hey.
Not
How are you
sure.
doing?
I'm doing alright.
I work at 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Doing actually really good. I was just watching some of the burnt peanut. You
Have
knew
you
who
been
he is.
working?
Not familiar.
Let's go. Burnt peanut.
Probably be on
Best
in the
VTuber to
afternoon.
date.
Hell yeah, man. GG's.
Peanut.
Alrighty.
I hope you make peace
See you
with
later,
your godmother.
bud.
See ya.
About to see him. Boss.
Oh, when he did that.
If we need more damage, I can swap to. See, I usually would have went Punisher, but if we need more damage, I can swap to Squirrel Girl. But we got 3 server admins, so no one should die.
And then we have a burnt peanut too. Just kidding.
I still don't get that. I don't know who Burnt Peanut is.
You
Man.
should.
I'm trying to understand.
Just, he's just the funniest creator probably ever. He has this funny thing where he calls Luke Goop, and it's so funny. Got Goop.
I'm down. Behind.
Maybe if you watched the burnt peanut, he wouldn't have got you. Just kidding.
I feel like you're trolling me at this point, like he doesn't even exist. I'm gonna go look him up, and there's nothing.
No, he does. He does.
Oh no, he exists, dude. Yeah, I'm gonna click that. He said the burnt peanut doesn't exist. Strange is dead. Oh, his goop dropped. Hey, adulting, dude, you have to watch the burnt peanut. Please promise me you'll watch the burnt peanut tonight.
I'll look him up. Let's see what's not working. Man, I wish they didn't ban Loki.
Maybe if you watched the burnt peanut, they wouldn't have banned him.
Oh my lord, dog.
What?
Nothing.
Hey, adulting.
No, I haven't heard of Burnt Peanut.
I just put a link in the chat. It's to the funniest burnt peanut video. If you want to watch it, you can watch it right now if you want to.
I'll check it out. No, I mean, I'm playing
You got... Sure you don't want to watch it right now? I'm gonna have my goop soon. I mean my ult. Been watching so much peanut. Adulting. Now will you watch the burnt peanut?
Bro, I think I have a peanut allergy at this point.
No. Holy crap, we're playing out of our goop. Bro, what is your guys' favorite burnt peanut clip that you guys...
Bro, I know you're trolling me at this point.
It's not fake. I'm not making it up, I promise. He's like the biggest streamer right now, the burnt peanut. He's averaging more viewers than a lot of other streamers like Kai Sinat and the burnt... No, the burnt peanut is Ty